the title. Can I still add a title? Okay. Hey y'all, it's your girl CoachLay. I am about to get on in a few seconds with one of my good friends that I had met from the morning meetup group. She is an amazing woman. She has some good gems that she's going to bring to us today. Give me 1 second. Let me get invited here. Because for some apparent reason, my title won't load anymore. But it's okay. It is okay. Have y'all been having a good day today so far? Let's see if it's loading. Hey, Miss Arylle.
Hello, Arylle. How are you?
Doing? I'm good. How are you?
Wonderful.
Perfect. I don't know what's going on with the title. I had it the first time, but it just is not working anymore for me for some apparent reason. I don't know why. Do you know how to re-add a title? Like if you
During the live?
Yeah.
I cannot tell you.
Oh Lord.
I'm trying to click around. I don't see anything on my end.
Yeah. Okay. It doesn't matter. We'll be all right. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Another idea is we can add the comment, add the title to the comment and pin it.
Oh, thank you.
Let's
Okay,
do
perfect.
it.
All right,
Yeah.
let me see. Wait. Oh, I just realized what you said.
Hey, Natalie. How are you? It's good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while. We're getting ready to have a pretty good discussion, so I'm excited.
Me too. Me too.
Hey, Troy. Hey, Passionista. I love it. I love the name, The
Hey,
Passionista.
Passionista.
The
Okay,
Fresh Prince.
now. Okay, boom. Yes.
Boom.
I swear, Aria, I learn something from you all the time. Every time I talk to you, I learn something new, which is perfect. Perfect, perfect. All right. So we can go ahead and get into it. Like we said, I am meeting with Miss Arylle today. And I will let you go ahead and just give your background information on who you are, what you do, and how you're just the wonderful woman that you are.
Well, thank you so much. I'm going to take all that in. I receive it
Yes,
all.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So, hey guys, my name is Arylle Young. I am the career coach of Guided LLC and the host of the Work and Play podcast. So, my passion is helping employees go from their 9 to 5 in corporate America. That's my core focus into entrepreneurship. And so, I do that through one-on-one coaching and my online course, as well as the Work and Play podcast, which is really just it's a career-oriented conversations that I have with
Hmm.
most of my boss friends who I've met in passing in my journey, who are doing things in their corporate arena and loving what they do. Some people are in corporate America and they're doing things outside of what they're doing. And then some people have gone into entrepreneurship, which is why I love this space so much. So I'm a huge advocate for entrepreneurship. I don't knock people who have 9 to 5s in corporate America, but I have a passion
Hmm.
for helping people through that transition.
Definitely perfect. So, what made you choose entrepreneurship? Like, you were in the corporate world, right, before you
I
got into
was.
doing your own thing? Okay, cool. So
Yes.
how can you walk us through like your journey of what made you decide entrepreneurship was for you?
Absolutely. So I was raised corporate. And what I mean by that is
Hmm.
not that my parents, so I'm a first generation corporate employee, meaning no one in my family ever went to the Fortune 500 sector. A lot of my family members are in
Oh.
education or in politics and things like that. So I was the first person in my family to go to a Fortune 500 company and start a career. I mean, when I
Hmm.
got my first pay, my first income, you're like, oh, $60,000, girl, you better stay there for 20 years.
Hmm.
So, you know, they were upset with me when I left my first company to go to my second company. So, my relationship with entrepreneurship didn't come until maybe 10 years later.
Hmm.
And the reason I say that is because I was raised to be a leader in corporate America. My relationship, I had gone and done career development while I was in college, and I had
Hmm.
a career coach, and their whole goal was to teach us how to be college students and then get yourself into a corporation and then move up the ladder. So I did that for 7 years, 2 different companies. And I even created this career development program while I was in corporate America to help young people experiencing homelessness go into a Fortune 500 company and navigate their way up to the ranks. So I was all about corporate America. Like I was just, that's just who I was. And I didn't necessarily have a passion. But when I was working with the young people and helping them navigate through corporate America, that experience of humanity just kind of helped me understand what my path was going to be. So my relationship with corporate started to change in probably 2016, 17, when I started to realize, okay, this is what I don't want to do. And even entrepreneurship didn't even come until 3 years after that, where I recognized I had established this large program within my 9 to 5. And if once you go into corporate, you understand that your intellectual property is not yours. So I created this national program. It was so awesome, help people get through their careers. And I recognized, like, this isn't my program. Like, I won't be able to take this. It doesn't even have my name on it. And I quickly started to feel like I wanted to create something for myself. But more than that, I wanted to do more in the community. So entrepreneurship actually came from social entrepreneurship for me, because I wanted to create a whole nother program outside of my last company to be able to help other people navigate into their careers. So 3 years later, I've established a career coaching firm, and we're having career-oriented conversations, and I like to help other entrepreneurs do the same thing that I did, but it came through a lot of trial and error.
Okay. Quick question. Can you give us a quick definition of intellectual property? Because I actually just found that out myself, and someone told me that, that's like the most important thing new entrepreneurs don't really know about. So can you give us like a little bit of insight on what the intellectual property is?
Yes. So I'll give it from this frame of reference, because your audience they're going into interviews, and they're selling themselves, and they want to get jobs at corporations. And so there's a lot of different types of interviews, but one type of interview is called not the situational interview. Well, I guess we can go with a situational interview. Where the employer is going to ask you questions to solve one of their problems. And so essentially they're going to say, hey, AT&T is making $2 million on this new widget, and they've lost sales for 3 years, and they need to figure out how do they increase their sales. Well, they're going to ask you what your idea is to improve their sales. Now, you could come up with any type of idea. You could say, well, if we create a marketing strategy for this widget that lasts for 3 years, and we do this, this, and that, then it'll make it really great. Or you could come in there and say, well, we can turn this widget into a whole new widget called widget 0.0, right? Or widget 0.2. And if we take this widget, we make it great, blah, 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 right? Well, what that is the idea is your intellectual property. The idea that you provide to them could actually earn them $2, $3, $4, $20 million, but you gave them that idea, and they were able to extrapolate from that idea and build a whole new business model off of that one conversation you had in an interview. So I know a lot of clients are actually like skeptical about going into interviews and sharing that much information, because once you give the company intellectual property, they can do with it whatever they want. So imagine if you're in the company and you're an employee, whatever cool thing you come up with, you can be working in shoe sales, right? But if you figure out a cool way to put on shoes, and now you have your clients trying on their shoes with your new idea, that is now if you work for Foot Action and you've been doing this whole Aryelle's new Foot Action tool, it is now Foot Action's tool to help you put your shoes on. So I don't necessarily, so intellectual property is essentially your idea, your mental real estate that you kind of give up to a company when you work for them. So I didn't necessarily like that idea.
Yeah, I definitely can understand that, because I myself, when whoever, I can't remember who told me, oh, you know what, I think it was actually Mogul Mike, he was telling me that, but it just brought to realization, like when I was working my corporate jobs, I used to come up with manuals for training, and it's just like, they would use it like, oh, Arylle, this is so good, we appreciate this, it's helping us flow easily, but it's like, okay, what can I do next? How can I help you guys do something else? But it's just like, they took it, ran with it, and didn't do anything else. So that kind of like put like a little damper on my spirit. Of course, being fresh out of college, that's like, oh, okay, you guys aren't going to acknowledge me, anything like that. So, yeah,
Yeah,
okay, that was
that's a really
definitely
good
new.
point that you bring up, though, because we're talking to people who are earlier in their careers, and
Mm-hmm.
we got to find that balance between, you know, giving intellectual information for the experience of learning, and then hoarding your ideas because you don't want anybody to steal your stuff. I think there's a
Mm-hmm.
balance between that. So one of the things that I talk about with like my older clients who are in corporate and like
Mm-hmm.
wanting to leave, testing out that ideation, starting to just think about new ideas is where I decide where I suggest everybody start, because ideas are they're everywhere, right? And so if you come up with a really cool idea that you think you can establish a whole business off of, no, I wouldn't suggest sharing that. But a manual to like help them understand, like, hey, this is how my mind works. And that is an example of a manual that could possibly, there's a whole company called Trainual out here,
Oh,
right? And
wow.
so if you were to think about your ability to create manuals
Mm-hmm.
just off of that, and you were like, no, this is something I actually want to create a business off of, then I would say don't share it. But if it's one of
Mm-hmm.
those things where you're like, hey, I'm just trying out a couple things, I want to create this and see where it goes, I think there's value in you actually creating things while you're in a company, and not being
Mm-hmm.
not being so not being so frugal with your ideas early on in your career.
Yeah, because sometimes being frugal, that can make you miss out on opportunities. In a sense, that definitely makes sense. So, since you are in the career guidance area, and since my area is more so focusing with college students, what advice would you give to a college freshman or sophomore who is still undecided on what they really want to do with their major? Because, on one of your interviews, you gave a percentage of how a lot of people are not using their college degree in the industry that they got the degree in. So, what advice would you give to someone who is still undecided in whatever they want to do, but just want to make sure that they go the right path so they don't end up wasting money or not utilizing their degree?
Absolutely. That's the best question ever. So I created that video because we oftentimes feel like college is useless, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because 70% of professionals today don't use their degree for what their current position is.
Mm-hmm.
So we deduce that, like, hey, I went to school for journalism, and I'm not doing journalism, so it didn't help me at all. But really and truly, the experience that you had in school is what you're capitalizing on. The relationships that you develop in school is what you're capitalizing on. The people that you meet in a journalism class is what is gonna be able to help you tap into the television network or wherever
Mm-hmm.
they go, because their career trajectories also are your capital. So
Mm-hmm.
the reason I made that post is because we do feel like I don't think we make the most of our college experiences. And what I would suggest for a person who's currently in college, sophomore, junior, senior, honestly, any year, is to
Mm-hmm.
try a bunch of different things. Just because
Mm-hmm.
you choose to be a business major does not mean all you can do is take business classes.
Right.
Like the loan, so the money that you actually pay to take courses is going to be paid anyway. So why don't you curate your experience from an educational standpoint? So the way that I look at
Mm-hmm.
college from like a core curriculum perspective, you take your core curriculum and you meet as many people as you can in that geometry course you're taking and that biology course that you're taking. And then with those electives, get really, really, really like fun with it. Don't take
Mm.
like gym. Don't take
Yeah.
something that's gonna just like, oh, this is gonna be an easy A.
Mm-hmm.
Shoot, get something and don't worry about getting a C in it, as long as you can experience to see if you really actually like it. So from
Mm-hmm.
a core curriculum credit standpoint, I would say in those core classes where you don't care anything about science, just get to know all the people in the room. Connect with every last classmate that you have, not just on Instagram, but through phone conversations. Go out
Mm-hmm.
to lunch with some of your colleagues. That you would be ahead of the game if you started doing this in college, because
Mm-hmm.
people don't take people out to lunch even in corporations. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
doing that in college, you're going to make a network that's valuable. The
Yeah.
second thing that I would say that you can make the most out of your college experience would be joining a bunch of different clubs. So
Mm-hmm.
when you think about like all the clubs that are available, you're like, okay, well, I don't too much care about like, this knitting club or whatever. But think about the large clubs that are on campus that have executive boards and they have
Mm-hmm.
like structures that have like leadership structures where you're a president and you have the SGA treasurer and the secretary, all these different roles. Thinking about how you're going to establish, if you want to go into entrepreneurship, then a club will definitely get you the structure that you need, that education to
Mm-hmm.
help you build your business, if that's really what you seek out to do. So if you want to go from undergrad to entrepreneurship, that is definitely a way to do it. So taking advantage of like clubs, but I would mix in like a business type of club, and then I would also mix in something that is geared towards your passion, because while you're in school, you're really testing out your interests. Because what happens is we have all these like we go into college with these passions, and our parents tell us, you're not going to be a singer. Why would you want to be a writer? You're not going to be
Mm-hmm.
an artist. Well, why don't you just use your not free education, but you're going to be spending money on these credits anyway. Why don't you use this education to test it out? That way, I have tried a whole semester of writing and actually I don't want to do it. Or
Yeah.
if you find that brings a passion out of you, because that's another issue. People don't know what their passion is. It's because they didn't test it out in college. You can use one of these clubs to test out your interests. The last thing that I will say that you can do to make the most out of your college experience, and this is like to me, this is an underground tip, but not just networking with your peers. Get to know as many administrators as you can, as many professors as you can, and literally take them to lunch, pick their brain, because they are connected with so many other people. If you can find a professor who's going to be your sponsor, and a sponsor is, so you have your mentor, your advisor, and your sponsor. If you can find a professor that'll be your sponsor, if you find yourself in a job 3 years later that you hate, then you can always reach back out and say, hey, Mr. Johnson, I really hate this career and I'm trying to figure out something to do next. And that person will be an advocate for you to say, hey, why don't you reach out to this person who could possibly be like a CEO of the next organization, or the VP at another Fortune 500 company. So tapping into your administrative professors and all of those like different teachers and stuff will definitely help you round out your portfolio. Notice everything that I said has something to do with people.
Yeah.
So whether you have these core classes that you hate, connect with people. Whether you are going to be, like interested in different clubs, connect with people, understand the structure. And then the last one is don't overlook your professors. Don't just think they're there to teach you. They're people too. Those are your networks.
Definitely. And I feel like every time that I've interviewed someone, they always gave me like tips and stuff that I wish that I would have known when I was in college, because I went to college and I changed my major a couple times, but I was like, you know what? I finally decided on just doing business, because I was like, I could do a lot of business at that time. Entrepreneurship was not something that was on my mind. So, I was just thinking more so from the business aspect of healthcare. And I was involved with organizations. We were the programming group for the university, so we did homecoming, all of those events like that. So sales, marketing, and stuff like that, I was able to get that from that particular organization. Like you were saying, get out and join organizations, because it does give you a different type of outlook on life when you are doing things that you like. Once you become an adult, it's like, oh, I do know how to plan events. I do know how to start up contracts and things like that. So what you're doing in college, sometimes you don't really know it can help you in the long run. And I really wish someone would have told me when I was in school, like, make sure you continue to network with your professors, because that is so true. Like when you get out of college, or when you get out of any type of thing, if you have those networking skills, you can always reach back, and which is a good reason of like the saying, don't burn any bridges. Like, if you're going to quit your job, make sure you put your 2 weeks notices. Don't just up and quit because you didn't like anyone, because you never know. You may need to come back to that job, or you may need someone else to help you along the way. So that's definitely something that was very helpful. I wish I would have known that in college, because I would have provided, or at least got more acquainted with a lot of my teachers, instead of just going to class, doing the work, leaving like, okay, I'll do the work and then I'm done. So yeah, that makes totally sense. Yeah.
Well, what's important about what you just said is And I want your audience to realize this. We are in a place in our career where a lot of what we learn is through reflection. I wasn't even though I was a part of those groups as well, we both had to learn what we learned, like kind of reflect on, okay, these are the skills that I got in retrospect. And what we're doing right now, which is why I love what you're doing, you're helping these young people be proactive in their careers. It's like we did some of these things, but because we were just kind of doing it, we have to look back and we have to reflect and say, how valuable were my experiences? But if you go into experiences knowing exactly what you're going to get out of it, then it's way more valuable in the long run.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. How do you, so when you say that you help corporate individuals either create a side hustle or actually go into entrepreneurship full term, what resources or I guess exercises do you use for them to find what they're passionate about to make it a job for, to make it a entrepreneur career area for them?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So, in the process of taking my clients from employee to entrepreneur, it's an 8-week process, and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of it is hinged on our mindset. So, our relationship with ourselves and our relationship with our company.
Okay.
So, before we even get into our passion, sometimes a lot of the process I'll say is called, like, we do a lot of tilling the soil,
Okay.
because when we're corporate employees, we have like this mindset of how things are supposed to go. We're experts in our industry, and so we have to unlearn some of the things that we just know,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the first thing I want to touch on is your question about how do people find their passions. I think this is with anyone, not even just my corporate clients, but a lot of times when we're adults and we forget that when we feel like we don't have a passion, the first thing that you can actually do, and I got this from a conversation that it just kind of condensed everything that I say. Think about what you used to do when you were a kid in your rawest form, and think
Mm-hmm.
about the things that used to just make you happy. And then let's start there, right? So, because if we start there in that playful place, then we can actually develop a career around that if you choose to. Because when we're younger, we have like a bunch of different passions. I still have a bunch of different passions.
That's
But
same.
if you can think about all of those different things, it's like, let's dump all of the Legos out on a table, and then the next couple of steps that we do in the process is starting to structure what can we actually put around the business. So I like to get really big and dream big before we start to get practical and
Mm-hmm.
start to like kind of trim the hedges and figure out which one is realistic, which one is applicable to the market, which one can drive the most revenue. So as we start to think about like your passions, you could be interested in doing hair. You can be interested in art. And then you could also be interested in organization, right? So I might help you flesh out those different things from like a large idea. And then another thing I like to do is have my clients think of like 3 completely separate lives, like
Mm-hmm.
outside of the life that they live. Because if you can think, where am I living? I'm in Costa Rica doing organization. Like I'm a VA for somebody in Costa Rica, literally living on the beach on my computer every day. Or I've decided to go off and be in the circus because I love stretching and I've always been really interested in yoga. So Cirque du Soleil, I've always wanted to do that. So you have 2 completely different lifestyles.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to like dream big and think about those different lives will allow us to decide which path do we want to go. And then, like I said, we can layer in those realistic components, like the revenue that you might want to generate. So we can start building a business around these ideas.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, so from the passion perspective, I wanted to answer it from that perspective first. So how do I get like my clients to transition from employee to entrepreneur and identify their passion? That passion exploration can happen for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Then when it comes to going from employee to entrepreneur, the most important thing is that business play. So being able to think about all of the possibilities and then get realistic on what we're actually pointing towards will allow us to channel our energy to figure out what do we want to manifest.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really big on manifestation, but affirmations don't work if you don't believe it, right? And you have to have something that's tangible to play into your vision so that you know what you're working towards. Because if I believe you can be a Cirque du Soleil dancer or a Cirque du Soleil, stunt devil, that it doesn't do you any good if you don't already believe that it's out there for you.
Right.
So the first step is mindset work, getting them really comfortable with like shedding their professional brand away from the company.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not just the Xerox senior now analyst. You
Mm-hmm.
are You are yourself. You are Arylle who's passionate about stretching, who loves to practice yoga, who also knows analytics, and that is who you are, right? So the other part that I like to help people is communicate that story. So when you're communicating that story, what platforms are you using to tell your story, and what are you actually sharing? So another thing that helps employees break away from telling their truth. So I want to be a Cirque du Soleil, dancer, but I'm currently a Xerox employee. Start talking about what you know. So helping them talk about what they know and how that's going to help them develop revenue, build revenue, because they already do it. And it's in line with their company because their company wants them to talk more about what they do at the company. Then they can start talking about themselves as a person. They can start layering in those things that they're really passionate about. Because as we know, we start to get familiar with people online. So through that know, like, and trust, that KLT. So know, like, and trust. So we start to understand, okay, first of all, we know that this person is a Xerox employee who's a senior analyst. We start to develop their knowledge base and then we understand that they're really good at their job.
Mm-hmm.
And then we start to understand them as a person. That's how we start to shoot towards tangible goals, to dream big. So then our dreams become a reality. And it's not just like, okay, all of a sudden we start talking about Cirque du Soleil. No, we've had a gradual progression so that you can start to realize what your professional identity is outside of the company. So that's just a couple of things that we talk about. I wanted to hit on that passion thing first, and then I wanted to bring it back through a practical example of how we can take someone from employee who's interested in just like numbers to dreaming really big and actually shooting towards their goal.
Okay. I really like how you did the breakdown for the passion because when I started this particular business, I knew corporate in a sense kind of wasn't for me because I just always felt undervalued, appreciated and everything of that nature. And um just thinking back on what you were saying, like, how to get them to understand what their true passion is, going back to the kid stages, like when you said that, I just thought about like when I was a kid, my favorite thing to do was teach. Like my dad and mom, they got me chalkboards. Like my mom was the principal, like my teddy bears and everything, they were the students. And it's just like, as an adult, I didn't realize that until someone actually like brought that to my attention. Like, maybe you should talk to people about different things because that's something that I used to always do when I was a kid. Like, I'm going to teach you this, you're going to learn this, you're going to learn that. But interpreting that into being an entrepreneur, it was just like, what really am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to do that? Like, how can I turn teaching someone something into an actual career or an actual business for myself? And that is like, it's mind blowing. Like what you said, like think about what you used to do or what you enjoy, because that's like when we are the most pure, like you don't have so much going on, you don't know, like you're really passionate about doing this, doing that, like you don't have other people nicking at you, telling you to do different things. So that's really a good step to start with. That's I told you, I always learn something when I'm talking to you, Arylle. It's just like perfect. Oh my goodness.
The cool thing about it is that your life is teaching you who you are. Because
Right.
a lot of times when it comes to coaching, I'm pulling out things that are already there. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like it's like you living your life and then you tapping into teaching now is after you just listening to yourself. Like essentially, like everybody doesn't take the time to listen to themselves. So I commend you for listening to your life and then finding your path and figuring out, okay, I've been doing this all my life. Like
Right.
now you know your lane. It's like people don't ever get to that place because they don't take enough time to explore themselves. Because it's already been there. It's already in you. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? It's already in us.
that's definitely true. Definitely true. How did you know it was time for you to leave your 9 to 5?
Ooh, that's a really great question. So, how did I know it was time to leave my 9 to 5?
And can I add an extra input to that for college students? If they are interested in becoming an entrepreneur, how will they know when? Well, you can let us know how how you knew it was time for you to leave your job, but what advice would you give them before they quit? Like if they should do any type of steps before they get to that stage?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, so keeping in mind words of wisdom to like help people go through their transition. For me, I so it's funny thing is I was always preparing for the transition. Like
Mm-hmm.
I knew that the company I was at wasn't going to be the end all be all,
Oh.
but I didn't know what I wanted to do next, right? So the first thing I would say to anyone who thinks that they might be interested in entrepreneurship or they might want to, leave their company, the first thing is, what do you want to leave your company to do? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have an answer for that. So because I didn't have an answer when I actually wanted to leave my job, I had to stay until I figured out what was going to be my next step.
Mm-hmm.
So, I would say this to someone who wants to go into entrepreneurship. Don't go into entrepreneurship just because you want to be your own boss.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's value in working at a company so that you can start to ideate and get ideas on what your company would actually stand for. Like you might be an analyst at a company, and then you decide, okay, I like to create manuals for my company, right? Or you might decide, like, okay, I want to teach other people how to do data analytics. But you wouldn't have known that that was your entrepreneurial endeavor if you'd never worked at a company.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing I will say as I answer this question is don't leave just to leave. I always say don't run away from, run to opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So figuring out what that opportunity for me was almost an 18-month journey. So
Oh.
I thought I was gonna quit. 18-month journey from the day I said I'm gonna quit, and I started aggressively saving my money so that I can actually leave,
Mm-hmm.
to the day that I actually quit, and I told my boss that I wanted to go to do something else. So I'll tell a little bit of the story. I told you I created a career development program for young people experiencing homelessness. That program pulled so much life out of me. So at the time where I was working, I was just going to work, doing my job, didn't like it, but didn't have anything else that I wanted to do. I was doing the program because it was an ask from my director, and then I started to get really invigorated. I got invigorated from working with the young people, and I got invigorated through seeing their results. So once I started seeing young people go from living in homelessness, making $0 or maybe like less than minimum wage, to
Mm-hmm.
going into my company and actually having the opportunity to work alongside managers and some of their mentors who were a part of the program, I'm like, oh, there's something here. Then, so that was the first epiphany, year after year. So we did it for 3 years. I found out what is called the zone.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was me in a classroom teaching young people about how to navigate through corporate America, and then actually having them regurgitate information that they actually use. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh, this is something I never even explored that was a skill set of mine.
Uh-huh.
So because I started to see that part of myself, and I'm really starting to explore other areas of myself and other skill sets, then I started to think first, before I even quit my job, I started to think, how can I exercise this skill set? How can I do this more? So because I worked in a large organization, and as a lot of people who work in large organizations do, you have opportunities to do those different things. I had HR because I was in marketing, I was in data analytics, but it gave me a little edge of
Mm-hmm.
that communication piece. So I didn't look like just a a data analyst. I thought, okay, maybe I can do this in HR. Maybe I could do this in community engagement. I started to really start to talk to other people and other leaders in different departments to see if I could transition to another job, because I still wasn't thinking about entrepreneurship at this time. I was just having conversations, having informational interviews, learning about what different jobs looked like. And then I got to a place where I'll speed up the story a little bit. I got to a place where I had all the conversations that I needed. I had leaders saying, "Oh, we would love to have you in our department," but the nuanced response a lot of times was, "We don't have room for headcount." And so essentially, if they don't have room for headcount, they don't have a budget for your salary.
Right.
So if you go over there, they will either have to pay you less, or they'll have to make you like a contractor. And I was a full-time employee. And they didn't want to do that, and I didn't want to do that, because when you're a contracted employee, your benefits are lower, and I didn't want to take a pay cut. But I got to a place where I said, you know what? If this is my purpose, I will take a pay cut. Just let me have the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
After all of those conversations were had, I had milked every opportunity that I could milk and every conversation that I could have with the people within my company. That's when I decided, okay, you've kind of I felt like I hit a dead end, but I still had one more play that I was trying to run. And so I was trying to get another job within a different department. I
Okay.
got the job in a different department. it was revenue management. So I went from data analytics and marketing to revenue management within my company. And it was actually, so revenue management was like the holy grail to a lot of people. It's like, oh my God, how'd you go from marketing to revenue management? And lo and behold, inside I'm really sad
Uh-huh.
because as much as I was happy I got the job, I couldn't get into HR like I wanted to. I couldn't get into community engagement like I wanted to. Everybody was telling me about headcount, and I felt like my career was no longer in my hands.
Oh.
So I'm getting paid more. I'm in this prestigious role. I actually kind of like my boss, but I'm not doing what I want to do, and it's pulling me away from my purpose. Now I'm in revenue management, no longer working. I'm working on the career readiness program, but kind of like for 2 or 3 hours here and there because I don't necessarily have time.
Right.
So speeding all that, so like skipping the rest of the like details in there, I decided 5 months into my new role that I wanted to work on that full time. So I wanted to work on like the career readiness program full time, and I didn't know how I was going to do it because it was my IP was the program. The program lived within the company, but I said, well, if I can't do the program, then I don't want to do anything for this company anymore. And I decided to take my career into my own hands. I saved up money for 18 months. I had a couple other different like strategic plays that ended up making it really helpful for me to quit and still be productive after I left. But long story short, what I did was once I got to a place where my passion and my purpose was pulling me away from the job, that's when I made a decision to leave. It wasn't until then, after I tried everything that I could that made sense strategically, internally, and after I saved enough money to make sense when I left to take care of myself, that I let my passion speak and I let my purpose kind of pull me in a direction that I'm in now.
That's perfect. That makes sense.
I
Definitely.
hope so. I feel like that was a long-winded answer. I was like,
No, because I mean that definitely does make sense because people really do need to know, like, and then like your journey could give someone else advice on what they should do. Okay, she said she did 18 months of saving. Okay, let me see if I can, do the same because I personally myself, I didn't do any of that. I honestly wish that I did take the time to, think it a little bit more through on what I wanted to do because the very first business that I started was an activewear line, but I started that because I was just like I was working out at that particular time, working out very heavy. So I thought, okay, I can do it. I can start an activewear line. It's nothing. And of course, by this time, I'm already tired of working for this particular job that I'm working for because just dealing with certain customers in certain levels in certain industries in the healthcare field, it can really be like a drain on you mentally and physically. So I was kind of like at that point and I was like, what, forget it, I'm just gonna quit. And that's what I did. And with me quitting, of course there was struggles along the way of me, financially and everything like that. But once I was able to get better steps and better processes in place, things started working out better for me. So yeah, I definitely would, long-winded answer or not, what you gave was really helpful because a lot of people think like seeing, the Joneses question, like, they see on Instagram, like, oh, she did it, I can do it too. I'm gonna quit my job tomorrow and, go from there. But a lot of people don't really know, like, you should want to set yourself up first in a good way that you don't have to worry about struggles because struggles are going to come regardless if you work in a 9 to 5 or if you're doing entrepreneurship. You want to just be able to have like a solid foundation. So that was definitely helpful. And, a lot of people really just don't know that. So I definitely appreciate that. And to go into that question about the Joneses, what information, well, let me just give a disclaimer. When I say the Joneses to everybody listening, like, they used to have the saying of, you're trying to keep up with the Joneses, you're trying to keep up with the next person who has the Audi, the Lexus, and, you have a Toyota. And it's like, okay, I'm going to go trade mine in tomorrow because if they got it, I want it. So as far as guidance, what would you say to a college student or just anyone who's, in the, whether they're working corporate or in entrepreneurship, because keeping up with the Joneses, that's not to just that's not just to a specific, that could be for the broad range of a lot of people. So what advice would you give to someone who see a lot of things going on that they want in their life on Instagram, but it's not actually working for them as far as for their career? Like, do you have any tips, affirmations,
manifestations, things like that they could, use on a daily basis to help them know that where they're at in their journey is where they're supposed to be.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Because when you're on Instagram, it can get it's really easy to get caught up in the glamour of somebody else's life.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, all right, so I want to tackle this question from a couple different perspectives, but because as a college student, and like you said, anybody can benefit from this, but what really gave me a realistic edge before I started living my own entrepreneurial life was interning. And when I mean interning, I mean like, apprenticing, free work, or sometimes I was like freelancing for people who had like 20,000 followers,
Mm-hmm.
100,000 followers. And when you get to see behind the veil, it lowers your expectations of like what that looks like for everybody else. So I wasn't setting myself up for that. So I would say the first thing that's a really, I do say this is a boss move, but to become an apprentice for someone who's already making those 20,000 followers so that you can see behind the veil and see what life really looks like will give you a realistic perspective of what like the stuff behind the glam actually is. So I think um, I've had a realistic perspective of people, even though they show their best selves on social media. But that doesn't stop the fact that the people who I don't know, I'm like, oh, but their life looks really glamorous. I wonder if they're like the people who I've worked for. So the first tip is to go work for somebody like that.
Mm-hmm.
Befriend someone and be an intern or an apprentice to see how that life really is. Because as a college student, you actually can start, leveraging your age and your need for education and learning, and somebody will be willing to kind of let you come in as an intern. And what you're doing is getting intel about how you are going to manage your platform when you get 20,000 plus followers.
Right.
The second thing that I'll say is, and my mentors actually tell me this, so it grounds me. But to establish a business with a mission
Mm-hmm.
is going to help you be grounded when you think about your long-term strategy versus the here and now. So some people might have 20,000 followers and they're doing like $9.99 programs every other day, $9.99, courses, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they have these like really, it depends on what their brand is. So I'm not shooting anybody's brand down, but what I am saying is everybody doesn't have a mission. And you can tell if they're doing some like right here and right now type stuff, or if their vision is more of a higher power, or if they're seeking some type of community impact. Like you can tell which ones are like that. So for me, I get motivated by people who are impact driven. I don't have to worry about that envy, because I get motivated because I'm like, okay, if they're making this type of impact, this is the type of impact that I want.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I feel that twinge of like, oh, their life looks better than mine, and I'm just like, for some reason, like that envy might kick in or whatever, which we're human. So
Human.
even if you shut that sound, even if you shut that brain, that thought down, you have to acknowledge it. But if it's somebody who doesn't help my productivity and all it does is make me look at them as and compare myself, then I think about, is it worth me following you? Like, am I getting anything out of you? Am I learning from you? Or am I just kind of comparing myself over and over? Am I getting inspired? Or I have to evaluate, why am I tied to you right now? So I think from a perspective of, if you're a mission driven person, if this person is aligned to your mission, then continue to follow them. And if they're not, then evaluate if you want to follow them. But then that last piece is knowing that your mission is a marathon and not a sprint will help you understand that your day will come.
Mm-hmm.
So as you talk about affirmations and manifestation, then you get to see, what are you truly manifesting. If you follow someone who's really impact driven, because they tie back to your mission, then you can start to really affirm that you are going to get your 50,000 followers. And you're going to impact, communities, and you're going to be able to teach 100,000 kids, and you'll be able to bring in $1 million into your business. Just like that person, let it be motivation. Let their lifestyle fuel your affirmations, because now you know what's possible. Don't let it be something that makes you sad because you're not there yet. Let it pull you, let it fuel your mission, let it continue to move you forward instead of trying to compare yourself. Someone who's day 157 or 562 compared to your day one.
Mm-hmm.
Like your day one is not going to look like somebody's, 10-year mark. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
letting that be motivation and letting that fuel their affirmation. So you know this, I do Monday mindfulness. And
Mm-hmm.
my affirmations are actually they're sent to me like just through sitting still with myself. And
Mm-hmm.
they're reminders of the greatness that we have within ourselves. So I oftentimes if I get unsecure in my vision, then I have to sit down and remind myself, you are a leader in your industry.
Mm-hmm.
You are making $1 million, right? Those type of things remind me that this is who I am. It's not that I'm trying to be someone else. I'm not trying to be the Joneses. I was given my God-given talent. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? And my God-given talent makes me different from them. Even if I use their lifestyle to build my affirmations, I use my own skill sets to fuel my own mission. So that's a long-winded answer, but I want to sum it up by saying, one, you can like debunk the mystery just by connecting with somebody who's already there,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they will be happy to help you. Two, use the people who are mission driven to fuel your mission and establish your business off of a mission.
Mm-hmm.
Three, unfollow those people who make you feel like your life is not worth it because those people don't feed you and they probably aren't there to like you're not their core audience anyway. So unfollow. And then lastly, let your life fuel your affirmations, remind yourself of your greatness. And then if you can't vision past like, your dirty room and you can't see how your dirty room is going to turn into a multi-million-dollar empire, then use somebody else's life to fuel your affirmations to remind you that God has already given you everything that you need to succeed.
Definitely. Definitely. They come on with the bars. That's definitely some good jewels right there because a lot of people, I know when I first started on my entrepreneur journey, like when I first got into it, just like, seeing other people having this, having that, or people younger than me, or people that's my same age, it's just like, oh my gosh, they got it. Why can I not do it? And that's kind of how I ended up in the space of creating an activewear business, activewear line, because that's just something like that was going on right then and there, and it was also being fueled by, if they can do it, I can do it, and not necessarily taking the time to understand what my kid passion was and turning that into an adult passion to actually be a successful business for me and for myself. So I definitely understand that. And to piggyback on you about unfollowing, that is so true. I'm telling you, like it's something like a saying, like the company that you hang around is like the company that you keep, or like what you turn out to be, something like that. But
Yes. You
I
you are the
definitely,
average, you are the average of your circle because that's one of those things that made me think of what you just said.
yes, definitely. Because I had to stop unfollowing. No shade, but I had to stop unfollowing the shade room because it was just too much negativity, too much drama, and it was kind of like starting to take a toll on me just reading it all day. Because it's like, okay, you read something, and now you on the next person page reading, like, or now you all in the comments seeing what's going on, and it's like, you're taking away from precious time that you could be using to better yourself, or doing something for your business as well. So I swapped them out for affirmations and just positive things that I really wanted to surround myself with, because what you see, eventually sometimes that can turn into who you are, because that's all that's all you're seeing is drama, 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 instead of positivity, motivation, uplifting yourself and things like that. So that's definitely a good key piece in following, because a lot of people don't really know that you know other people's life can have an influence on you, or just things that you see outside can definitely alter how you feel. So yeah, I definitely appreciate that. So as far as for the Work and Play podcast, can you give us the details on what days you go on, or where they can look to watch the podcast? Because I know you're more so helping corporate, but anybody can learn from corporate, entry level. Everybody can learn from watching your podcast. So can you give us the deets on that info, please?
Absolutely. You're right. So the podcast is, so yes, corporate is the core audience, but then like if you're going from a 9 to 5 to entrepreneurship, everybody could definitely use these lessons. But
Mhm.
before I go there, I wanted to just commend you because your self-awareness is like literally what kind of guides your life. So that's why my company is called Guided, because like our internal compass is what guides us. But you mentioned like you did the fitness brand when you left. And then you listen to yourself to realize, okay, you started because someone else motivated you to get into it,
Yeah.
right? And then you decided not to do it because you realized that wasn't at your core. And then you went back into your childhood to figure out what it is that you really need to do. So don't even be afraid. People, guys, listen, do not be afraid to test out a business idea and to
Mhm.
see if it really works. Let somebody motivate you into an industry. And then when you realize, okay, is this the industry I want to be in? Then you leave. And
Yep.
it's no hard feelings. It's easy peasy.
Yep.
So,
That's part of life, learning and growing.
yes, absolutely. So thank you for sharing that experience. Um, the Work and Play podcast, it launches every Friday. So I do right now, it's launching once a week, Fridays at 9 a.m. on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, all the different, like I just put it on Castbox. I just put it on Castbox. So it's actually going to be on every single podcast
Podcast
platform
platform.
that you can find. I'm actually going to put it on Roku TV this week. So it's going to be on Roku
Oh.
TV. Yes. So the Work and Play podcast is for it's for individuals who are in transition, whether they're going from corporate America up the ladder, leaving corporate America into their entrepreneurship, or it's kind of straddling the fence.
Mhm.
Um, I launched the episodes on Friday. We do a live Q&A or like a replay on Monday. So
Mhm.
tonight I actually did my first solo episode. So
Oh.
we'll be actually going over strengths today. So the solo episode was about self-actualization
Mhm.
and how everybody's not really we have to figure out like when you think about growth, are you on the self-actualization path? Do you want like small milestones and small growth, or are you really in this journey to figure out what your full potential is? And
Mhm.
so in the vein of self-actualization, tonight I want to talk about strengths. And
Mhm.
so the Strengths Finder assessment is one of the things that I do with my clients in the first week of us going through an 8-week process. So to understand the 4 quadrants and understanding like, do you lead with execution? Do you lead with strategy? Are you more so a relationships person, or are you a communication driven type person? That is going to help us get the core of understanding what our foundation is to actualize who we really are. So as entrepreneurs, we have to use all of our strengths, but the top 5 will help you really find your zone of genius and help
Mhm.
you be your best self. So tonight I'm going to go live at 8 p.m. to talk about that. And so you can catch a new episode every Friday. You can catch a live interview with my guest on every Monday at 8
Mhm.
p.m. But tonight it just so happens to be me.
Oh, cool. Perfect. So on Fridays, you air the interview, and then on Monday, the person that you interviewed on Friday, you guys do question and answers on that Monday.
Actually, the following Monday. So it's kind of like a staggered cadence. So
Okay.
I'll launch a new episode the following. So this Monday, not this person, but the following Monday, that person will go. So it's a whole 7 days in between launch and replay. So
Okay.
it's a staggered interviewer type of situation.
Okay. Cool. So we can get to the podcast through your link, right? Through your bio link.
Yes, the
Okay.
link is in my bio. Yes, both links to the YouTube page as well as to my Spotify or to the podcast platforms. It's hosted by Red Circle. Those are both in my link. So if you can only listen, then you can click the podcast link, and if you can watch it as a visual, then you can click the YouTube link. Now, if you're interested in coaching, I do that through DMs because I think it's more of a customized process anyway.
Mhm.
Because even though I do have the online course, the conversation that we need to have will help us understand if we need to strategize and do one-on-one coaching, do online coaching, or if you need other resources, because I might not necessarily be the best fit for you. So the coaching, if you're interested in coaching with me, then that would be through a DM for you to tell me what your situation is, what your 9 to 5 is. If it's not particularly in corporate, if it aligns, because I navigate in those systems, if
Mhm.
it aligns, then we can work together.
Okay, because I was just about to ask, what if they haven't made it to corporate yet? Like, what if they're just working like a retail 9 to 5 type of thing? Like, or would you be able to help and assist them as well, like transitioning?
Yeah, so my philosophy is with everybody. it debunks the myth that you have to have a job before you get another job, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you don't necessarily need your entrepreneurial endeavor to compare to your salary in order to quit your job.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're in corporate or if you have a 9 to 5 and you haven't made it to corporate yet, you essentially have a salary. You're afraid to go into entrepreneurship because right now your money doesn't quite compare. So if we have a system that will generate the income that you have or more, then that will give you the confidence that you need to leave your 9 to 5 and go into entrepreneurship with a steady income. Because being able to predict your income, honestly, that was the biggest epiphany that I had as an entrepreneur. Because when I was in corporate, I'm like, why do I want to be an entrepreneur when I have a steady paycheck?
Yep.
Like, why do I want to do that?
Stability.
Yeah, but if you can predict your income, if you can forecast your revenue as an entrepreneur, for me, that's a sweet spot. But that only comes from having a system in place.
Perfect. Okay, perfect. All right. Is there do you have an Instagram for the Work and Play podcast?
No, actually everything is on Arylle Young _. So you can follow me and get literally everything that they need on one page.
Okay, perfect. All right. So I'll definitely make sure that I of course I was gonna add you in the comment and everything like that when I post a video. But I really appreciate you coming on here with me, Miss Arylle, giving us this good information. Like I said, I've learned so much from you, like from the very first time I talked to you to even now. Like, you're amazing. I really appreciate you so much. And you said
thank you
tonight.
so much for reaching back. Yes, tonight at 8 p.m. I was just going to say thank you so much for reaching back. I think it's really important that like we share these same nuggets. So like we said, they can be proactive about their career choices and then learn from some of the things that we've already been through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the whole purpose of the Adulting Crew, to help them transition into adulthood, because if you don't have anybody letting you know, it may be a little struggle once you get there, but having someone to be able to help you along the way is definitely a helpful journey. And of course, leaving a career and not knowing really what you want to do, having someone guide them into that direction of just giving them a little bit of insight is definitely helpful. So I definitely appreciate you for coming on here once again to just help us, if we didn't have any guidance in a career or just in life in general, like we definitely have some takeaways from this today. So I really appreciate that so much.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Arylle.
You are welcome. Thank you so much. All right, so I will talk to you soon. Have a good one, okay?
You too.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you guys for joining.